guys, welcome to another episode of Remember Them, presented by the Project We Are Free Foundation. I'm your host, Dr. Tamika A. Anderson, and I'm a survivor of 20 years of domestic violence and abuse. I'm on a mission to help you know the red flags of domestic violence and abuse and how to escape a potentially deadly relationship by sharing real life experiences and personal experiences, and also real life cases of women who have been affected by domestic violence. In this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the tragic disappearance of Shanann Watts and her two little girls, Bella and Celeste. It's not for me to decide the fate of the accused, it's up to the law. But in these videos, I will not reference the perpetrators by name. The accused will be referred to as the abuser. Hopefully, in each one of these cases, justice will prevail. Join me as we take a look into the life of another woman who has been affected by domestic violence and abuse. Shanann Watts was a 34-year-old mother, entrepreneur, friend, sister, and wife. Shanann had two beautiful daughters, Bella 4 years old, Celeste 3 years old, and she was 15 weeks pregnant with her baby boy, Nicole. Prior to getting married and moving to Frederick, Colorado, Shanann lived in North Carolina where she was doing very well for herself. She was the top salesperson at the car dealership she was working at, and she had purchased her home and had it built from the ground up as a single woman. One of Shanann's friends told her that she wanted Shanann to meet her husband's cousin and that he was a really nice guy. Shanann's friend suggested him on Facebook to Shanann, but in a Facebook Live video, Shanann explains how she initially ignored the suggestion, and then her future abuser followed up and sent her an actual friend request. After some time, Shanann finally acknowledged him and accepted his request in 2010. Initially, Shanann said she was not impressed with her abuser because on their first date, he came to the movie theater underdressed. On their second date, they went to a rock concert and they had a great time. And on the third date, they went to Myrtle Beach. And it was at this point where Shanann kind of realized he was like a nice guy. And so Shanann suffered with lupus. And on the drive back from the beach, she laid her head on his lap. And during the entire drive, Shanann explains in a Facebook Live video how loving and caring he was, because even though he had to pee, he still let her lay her head on his lap for like 2.5 hours. And it was then when she realized, this might be a really nice guy. In 2011, he proposed to Shanann, and this proposal took place at Ocean Isle Beach. And Shanann was described as being very OCD about organization and just keeping things in order. So after the proposal, Shanann planned her entire wedding. She planned their entire wedding. And in 2012, in November, they got married at the Doubletree Hilton in North Carolina. Prior to Shanann's marriage to her abuser, her relationship with his family was strained. Before the wedding, Shanann had a family gathering at her home for both her and her abuser's family to attend. At this gathering, Shanann's abuser's mother and sister cross-contaminated food, knowing that Shanann could only eat gluten-free food. Luckily, Shanann's mother brought food with her that was gluten-free. At this same event, when Shanann's abuser's mother was alone with Shanann's mother, the abuser's mother leaned into Shanann's mother and said, "So, your daughter has been married before?" Shanann's mother replied, "Yes, just like your daughter." The abuser's mother responded by saying, "I don't think your daughter really loves my son," but she didn't give any reasons as to why she thought this. The abuser's mother constantly had an issue with Shanann and treated Shanann as if she was not good enough for her son. In a police interview with Shanann's abuser's best friend, the best friend told the detective that Shanann's mother-in-law would call him and speak negatively about Shanann, and she was very vocal about not liking her and that she thought Shanann was shady. The best friend told the police that he never saw any signs that Shanann was a shady person. He thought Shanann was a very nice and bubbly person. When the abuser's best friend asked the family why they didn't like Shanann, not one of her abuser's family members could give a good or valid reason for their blatant dislike for Shanann. In an interview with a reporter, Shanann's mother-in-law said that she didn't like the way her son jumped to do things for Shanann. She said she felt like Shanann didn't love her son, but she didn't follow up with reasons as to why. Shanann was eager to be welcomed and accepted into her abuser's family. Although the relationship between Shanann and her abuser's family was strained, she accepted what would be her future sister-in-law's offer to help with mailing out wedding invitations to Shanann and her abuser's wedding. As a way to ease the tension, Shanann allowed her soon-to-be sister-in-law to take full responsibility of the invitations being mailed to the different family members and friends. On the wedding day, over 80 of Shanann's friends and some family members did not attend the wedding. Her soon-to-be in-laws didn't plan on attending the wedding in the first place, and they didn't show up either. Weeks and months after the wedding, as Shanann began seeing some of her friends and family members, when she asked why they didn't attend her wedding, they all said that they didn't receive an invitation. And her in-laws did not attend this wedding because they did not like Shanann and they didn't want to see her get married. And it turns out that the sister-in-law did not mail all of the invitations. In 2013, Shanann and her abuser purchased a 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado. And in December of 2013, their daughter Bella was born. Bella was their miracle baby because the doctors warned Shanann that she may not be able to have children due to her battle with lupus. In July of 2015, Celeste, affectionately known as Cece, was born. Like most mothers, Shanann was working outside of the home, taking care of her children, and being a wife. Due to her hectic schedule and some health complications, Shanann started her own business, and she worked from home. Shanann battled with health issues and had difficulties with getting pregnant. The girls suffered with some health issues as well, and after being misdiagnosed numerous times, the girls were finally properly diagnosed with asthma. One of the girls had a nut allergy and the other had a narrow esophagus. And Shanann had surgery on her neck, and as a result, they had mounting medical bills, and this was one of the reasons they had some financial problems that led them to file for bankruptcy in 2015. In a Facebook Live video in June 2018, Shanann posted a surprise announcement of their third pregnancy. For Bella and Cece, they used fertility drugs, but for this pregnancy, they didn't. Another miracle. In the video, Shanann's abuser seems pleasantly surprised to the naked, untrained eye. However, the following month, in July 2008, Shanann and the girls went to North Carolina for 6 weeks to visit both sides of the family. Shanann also wanted to promote her business in the North Carolina territory and meet up with some of her customers. Shanann saw working in North Carolina as an opportunity for the girls to spend time with both sets of grandparents, and they could rotate watching the girls while Shanann worked. During their time in North Carolina, Cece had a birthday, and Shanann FaceTimed her abuser so that he could watch the party. Shanann was upset because she realized that all of the food her abuser's mother had at the party contained nuts, and one of the girls had a nut allergy. Shanann told her abuser's mother that she should not have the nuts there because she knows about the nut allergy and that it could kill her granddaughter. Shanann told her abuser and her friend about this incident via text, and she was very upset. So I would highly suggest that you do your own research and you can read the text messages that Shanann sent to her abuser and her friend detailing this encounter. Shanann told her abuser that he needed to start standing up for himself, his wife, and his children because these different incidents with his mother became more frequent and they seemed to be escalating. While in North Carolina, Shanann sent her abuser a text telling him that he was selfish and that he had no concern for others. And she told him that she finally figured out what was wrong. He was emotionally distant towards her. She even stated in a text message to her friend that at an ultrasound appointment, she reached out to hold his hand and he pulled away, rejecting her. In a text, Shanann tells her abuser that he doesn't have any warm emotions for her anymore and something was wrong in the relationship. She said that she couldn't come back to Colorado if he continued to treat her emotionless and cold and didn't reciprocate. During the final week of the trip to North Carolina, Shanann's abuser flew to North Carolina to join her and the girls. During the weeks leading up to his arrival, Shanann's abuser had a girlfriend, and Shanann sent her friend a text stating that she thought he might have another girl, but she didn't think her abuser had it in him. For more details on the affair and the text messages, again, I urge you to do your own research and take a look at the text message exchange if you want more info. But there's just so much in this case for us to learn. On the first night of his arrival, Shanann's abuser stayed with her and the girls at Shanann's parents' house. So the next day, they went to North Myrtle Beach, and Shanann's mother said that he was driving really fast over the speed limit. And this is a really important detail, and we're going to talk about this in the follow-up video as we identify some of the red flags of domestic violence and abuse in this case. And although he was still emotionally distant towards Shanann, she did say in a text to her friend that he warmed up a little bit. So the following day, Shanann's abuser went to his parents' house and hung out with his parents and his sister, and he visited his grandmother in a nursing home. So he was able to visit with his family as well. And here's where things begin to shift. On August 7th, Shanann and her abuser packed up and flew back to their home in Colorado. On August 8th, Shanann's abuser returned to work. On August 10th, Shanann flew out to Arizona with her friend Nicole Atkinson. Shanann's abuser kept the girls while she was away on business. On that Sunday, August 12th, Shanann's abuser took the girls to a birthday party. After the party, he said he took the girls home, gave them a shower, put them to bed, and waited for Shanann to return home from her trip. Shanann's airplane was delayed because the airline didn't have a flight crew, so instead of arriving in Denver at 11 o'clock p.m., she didn't get home until around 2 o'clock a.m., where she was dropped off by her friend Nicole. During the layover, Nicole said Shanann purchased a book for how to help her marriage, and they would normally go out while they were out on business, and instead, Shanann stayed in the room. She didn't eat much, and she was worried about her marriage, and she was really stressed about wanting to fix the marriage. Shanann's abuser stated that they had an emotionally charged conversation when she came home from her trip, and that Shanann said she was going to take the kids to a friend's house and she would return later that day. Shanann's abuser said after the conversation, he went downstairs to pack his lunch, water jug, a computer, and loaded his truck and went to work. After he got to work, he said he texted Shanann at 7:40 a.m. and asked her to tell him where she took the kids, but Shanann didn't reply. He texted her again and asked her to tell him where she took the kids again, and she didn't respond. He continued working, and at noon, he noticed that she still hadn't responded. He then called and texted Shanann and said, "Hey, call me." At 12:10 p.m., he received a doorbell alarm on his cell phone stating that someone was at the front door of his home. It was Nicole. Nicole and her son. You know, Shanann's friend who dropped her off earlier in the morning at 2:00 a.m. Nicole said that she couldn't get a hold of Shanann, and this was unlike her to not return her phone calls. Shanann's abuser immediately called Nicole and told her not to contact the police and that he would be home. Nicole, being the good friend that she is and trusting her gut instinct, called the police anyway. Nicole told Shanann's abuser that the police would be there when he got home. This was so smart of her to bring her son with her and calling the police to be there as well so that she wasn't there by herself when the abuser arrived. Nicole had just house sat while the family was in North Carolina. So she knew the alarm code to the keypad, but she and the cops could not enter the house because the door had a latch on it that was installed to keep their small girls from leaving the house. Sort of like, a child-proofing precaution. When Shanann's abuser arrived to the home, Nicole, the abuser, Nicole's son Nick, and the police went into the house. Shanann's car, her purse, her wedding rings that she would never take off unless she was dyeing her hair, Bella and Cece's car seats, all there. Nicole's son found Shanann's phone wedged in the couch, which showed numerous text messages that had come through from people trying to get in touch with Shanann. But there was no sign of Shanann and her precious little girls. Shanann's friend Nicole knew that Shanann had an ultrasound appointment that day, so she rushed over to the doctor's office to find out if Shanann had showed up for the appointment. Nicole was devastated to find out that Shanann did not show up for this appointment. At this point, Nicole knew something was wrong because Shanann would not have missed this appointment for her ultrasound. However, Shanann did tell Nicole in a text message when she was in North Carolina that she wasn't going to have the gender reveal party because her abuser told her that he didn't want to have the baby. Shanann canceled the party because she said she didn't want her friends to see a fake him. And no, I'm not going to speak his name. The abuser did a media blitz from the family home, pleading for their safe return and stating that he missed the girls eating their chicken nuggets and how he went to make their beds and realized that he didn't need to turn on the rain machine for the girls to go to sleep or be able to read them a book and kiss them goodnight. And he goes on and on as if he had no clue as to what happened to his poor family. Soon the FBI and the CBI got involved with this investigation and began interviewing Shanann's abuser. The investigators asked Shanann's abuser a series of questions until he finally confessed to murdering pregnant Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. He confessed to strangling Shanann until she died. Shanann had bruises in the shape of fingers on her neck, as reported in the autopsy report. He initially tried to blame Shanann for the girls' death, saying that Shanann smothered the girls, which is why he strangled her. The autopsies revealed how 4-year-old Bella bit her tongue so hard while fighting back as her father smothered her to death, how Bella's body was scraped as their abuser shoved her through a small hatch in one of the oil tanks where he hid their bodies. Investigators later found strands of soft blonde hair on one of the tanks. He then confessed to loading the bodies into the back of the truck, and this footage was recorded on the next door neighbor's surveillance camera. And this is the same camera that Nicole's son Nick pointed out on the day they went to Shanann's house looking for her. Shanann's abuser drove 50 minutes to dump their bodies on the site of the oil company where he worked. He buried Shanann's body in a shallow grave, and he shoved the girls through the hatch on 2 separate oil tanks. Shanann didn't confide much in her mother about her relationship because her mother was described as feisty. But she did confide in her friends Nicole and Cassie. Shanann's courage to be vulnerable with her friends and share with someone about her problems within her relationship, I believe, is what helped close this case so quickly. Nicole was brave and confident in confronting this abuser and murderer because she knew her friend Shanann. She loved her friend, and she was genuinely concerned about Shanann and the girls' overall well-being. Shanann's abuser and murderer will serve 3 consecutive life sentences for the deaths of his wife Shanann, 34 years old, who was 15 weeks pregnant, and his daughters Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3. He will also serve 48 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy for baby Nico Lee, which will run consecutive to 3 life sentences. He received 36 years total for disposing of all 3 victims' bodies, 12 years for each person. Those terms also will run consecutively to the life sentences. He was also sentenced to 2 additional life terms for the 2 charges of first-degree murder of a child under the age of 12 by a person in a position of trust. These sentences will run concurrently with the 3 consecutive life sentences as mandated in Colorado law. I'm going to close with this. Shortly before Shanann's murder, Shanann's abuser sent her a picture of a life-size doll with a tarp from the game Twister. Shanann posted this on Facebook, and she said it was creepy and she didn't know what to think of it. I believe this was his sick and demented way of warning Shanann about what he was about to do to her and the girls. In the follow-up video to this, I want to talk about knowing the red flags of domestic violence and how to escape a potentially deadly relationship, because there's so much that we can learn from this real-life tragic case. Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you know is being abused, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 7233. 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE. Be sure to like this video and respectfully chime in on the conversation by leaving your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And be sure to subscribe and turn on your notification bell if you'd like to join us for the next conversation as we identify the red flags and also get my commentary on this case in the next video. And remember, put a heart in the comments section to remember the lives lost to domestic violence and abuse. Share the Purple Heart. See you next time. Watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, and visit projectwearefree.org for free resources and materials.